Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to another edition of the NFC West Roundtable, powered by BetUS. Week 1 is officially in the books. We're already moving on to week 2, just 2 short days away. But the first week of NFL football has come and gone, and it was as entertaining as we thought it would be. We had 2 victors in the NFC West. We had 2 losers in the NFC West. But I'd argue the 2 losers might have had 2 of the better losses of the week. So overall, this was an extraordinary weekend, I felt, for not only the NFL, but for the NFC West. And we're going to dive all the way into it. No Norb tonight to gloat for the Seattle Seahawks, but the rest of the entire gang is here. Fellas, how was your week 1? We'll spin it around the table. We'll start with you, Jesse. I know we're going to get into your game first, but overall, how was week 1 for you?
Oh, it was fantastic. I mean, football's back. I got to watch some really, really good games leading up into Monday Night Football. Started with, the Thursday night game, and then the Friday game. I had my eyes glued to the Friday game and the Sunday night game, because those are the 4 teams that I think have the biggest chance to pose a threat to the 49ers in the NFC, and they just happen to be playing each other. So it was really, really fun to just sit back, relax, watch these teams. I really felt like my takeaway was the Lions and the Rams are a lot better than the Eagles and the Packers, is kind of the way that I took away everything from that. So we'll see how it plays out throughout the course of the season. The Rams got to get healthy, what have you. But, overall, I watched the whole Bills-Cardinals game. I thought that was a great game as well. So, yeah, I think it was a fun weekend. And then we got to cap it off with a 49er victory. I mean, Z-Bot, we were in the chat. I know that you had teased a bet to get minus 13 for the 49ers. It ended up being a wash.
Unbelievable.
So close to winning that one for you. You were even more confident than I was that they were going to win by a big amount. That was crazy. And really, I just got to say, where are you at, King Lowski? You talked all that crap all last week. You better be here to take that whooping. You guys got punked in front of everybody like I said you would. We are the bullies. You are not. Hype for no reason. Good luck to you this year. Told you it was coming. I don't know where that confidence came from. Humble yourself, my man. Humble yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Oh, did we already?
Aaron Rodgers has become a New York Jet. And what has happened is this inflation for a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 15 years. All of a sudden, the preseason Super Bowl champions. We're going to talk about that game in just a second, but safe to say, the Niners were able to deflate that balloon, at least for a little while, until we get into week 2 and so on. But an incredible night for your 49ers. Jake, I thought it was a great night for your LA Rams until it wasn't. I mean, that was a hell of a game as far as a loss is concerned when you consider all the injuries for the Rams. Great night overall for football. I know it was a tough loss for your Rams, but outside of Sunday night, how was your week 1? How did you enjoy it?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. Football's back, and I mean, I'm juggling like hell because I'm covering baseball and football and having to watch the Yankees while I have 4 football games on. It was a zoo, but I had a great time doing it. And look, the Rams game didn't go the way I wanted it to, obviously, but that was a very good loss, if there ever was such a thing. Just really proud of the team because I mentioned multiple times last time we did this roundtable, guys, Bills 2022, that game and how crushing it was to the Rams totally broke their spirit the rest of the year. I don't care what anyone tells me. I know the injuries sucked, but I just felt like the vibe was just out of the room. They went into banner night. Rams are hanging up their Super Bowl banner, and the Bills are like, all right, well, we're going after that. We're going to punch you in the mouth. Josh Allen was incredible in that game. And, at that, there was one point or another, they had the same exact parallels where the Lions got into a groove and then the Bills did. And we saw the difference is that the Rams in 2022 kind of just got kicked repeatedly, whatever, in the kidneys while they're just on the ground, and they never got back up. And it just became a total crapshoot. Well, with this Lions game, to come back from 17-3 down without Puka Nacua, without Steve Avila, without Rob Havenstein, who didn't play, without your number 1 corner in Darius Williams, who's on IR, moving around offensive linemen. Now you're putting Jonah Jackson at left guard. Joe Noteboom goes down. So now you're starting AJ Arcuri, who I liked in preseason, but I liked in preseason. I don't want him starting at left tackle against Aiden Hutchinson. And so I'm watching this team, and I'm watching, most importantly, Jesse's guy, Bo Limmer, doing work. I mean, he did a really nice job in this game. We're very excited about Bo Limmer. But, just really my biggest thing was I know who Stafford is. I wasn't surprised. I said, even when they were down, I'm like, this is going to be a game where the Rams have a chance to win because they have Matthew Stafford. They're never out of it. But the most important thing about this game for me was that the defense was just so far beyond my expectations. I don't care. People have this revisionist idea that they could not stop the run. No, you saw the end of the game in overtime, so that's what you assume. They did a great job. You take away those 40 yards on the last drive of the game in OT, which, by the way, both teams were tired, as Chris Collinsworth brought up. I think the same thing happens on the other sideline. But either way, you take 40 of those yards away from Montgomery, which he had on that last drive, and he wasn't that great. They held Amon-Ra St. Brown to 13 yards on 3 catches. The only one who did anything was Jameson Williams. And Williams had the 124 yards. 60 of them were on that big explosive against Trey White, who was great the whole game. And then you look at Kobe Durant, who we're hoping he'll take the next step. And he did. He looked great in that game. And furthermore, the thing that I was so excited about, obviously Jared Verse, 19th overall pick, sacking Jared Goff. That felt great. The better Jared that the Rams drafted. But more importantly here, the big thing for me was that I heard over and over and over again that the linebacker room was scrubbish. We have all these, these guys are trash. Troy Reeder's trash. Christian Roseboom's trash. They don't know what they're doing with Ernest Jones. I said on this channel, I said, look, Ernest Jones they got rid of him for a reason. Okay. We might not know exactly what the reason is. I have a little bit of an idea, but they got rid of him for a reason. Okay. And the reality is we saw Troy Reeder. I don't care what PFF had. People keep sending me PFF grades like, see, this is why Troy Reeder was bad. No, you didn't tell me why Troy Reeder's bad. You used a metric that is subjective, which means it's not the end all be all. It's not the Bible. So the reality is Troy Reeder and Christian Roseboom balled out on a level I was not expecting. And John Johnson turned back the clock at age 30. He looks like he's going to be a big contributor this year. Cam Curl was flying all over the field. And Quentin Lake seems to have taken that next step as like a captain of this defense. So in conclusion, I called this an inspiring heartbreak because that's what it was. It was a very inspiring football game. The Rams should have won. They dominated the Lions in the second half, and they should have won. However, I'm okay with the loss because the last time a team lost to the Lions in week 1, they won the Super Bowl, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh.
How about that? You already got it all mapped out. You'll be ready to go. You'll look back on it in February, and you'll say, look, this is all part of the plan. AZ sports fan is the best way I would think. You got to be feeling great about that name today because last year you come in, you say you're an Arizona sports fan, right? Last year, not so easy. I think this past weekend against the Buffalo Bills, for me watching that first half, I'm sitting there thinking this game, it's going similar to how I thought it would in terms of how competitive I thought Arizona was going to be. It's going beyond what I thought it would be in terms of how good they really did look in the beginning, especially offensively. Kyler Murray, James Conner. Overall, I thought despite the loss, coming off of a season like the Cardinals did last year in that game, Arizona looked great for at least a half. Second half, things got off the skids a little bit. But overall, your thoughts coming off of a season where you only win 4 games, you have to go in and play a team like the Bills who have been contending for a few years now, and getting the type of production you got to the point where it came down to the final drive of that football game.
I think overall, when you're looking at the game, obviously heartbreak, I guess, is the word to describe, but also there's a lot of positivity that comes from this game with just the difference of, I don't know. It's just a lot of people not believing that this team was going to be anything other than a 4-win team, 5-win team. And I think that the Cardinals came to Buffalo where we're not used to, you can throw a ball like this and then the ball can get completely whiffed out of nowhere. And, I don't think we're used to that, but we went in there and actually held our own. We some might argue saying that we should have won that game because that PI call should have been called. But I do think that with the whole refs, there was calls on both sides. I'm not one of those guys that like to use those as an excuse, but what a game. What a game on Sunday. I did say that was one of the most exciting games, at least for me, and maybe coming from an Arizona Cardinal fan, being very biased, but we did a very good job in holding Josh Allen for the limited time that we did. But that's the thing. Like, you got to take advantage of those times that you do that because Josh Allen is a monster, man. You allow him to cook. You allow him to get into a groove. Then the Cardinals ended up seeing what he really is. And obviously, 2 throwing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. And it almost kind of seemed like a guy that, the Cardinals tried. They tried, and they couldn't get it done. But overall, I think there's a lot of, good things to take away from this game. I think the offense looked very good in the first half. The defense, you did say it did sputter, and you're 100% right. It did sputter. I think that just kind of attributed to the Cardinals just wanting to stick to their game plan so darn bad about running the ball. Like that, they were just trying. I think they just beat themselves on. They're like, oh, let's just run with the ball. And they didn't really let any of these wide receivers get into a groove. Now you can blame it on Kyler. Was he not, throwing the ball to it? Probably, right? Like I said, there's good things and there's flaws. But I think if you're looking at the game entirety, this is a very, very good game and a step in the right direction. I just need us to build from this. I'm not trying to see a regression. This is a good start from the season, playing a competitive team, a contending team. And whenever you guys have Josh Allen, it's a competitive team and contending team. So I think we held our own in Buffalo, and I'm very, very proud of this team. I just need to see that next step here in week 2 versus yours truly, Jake, the Rams.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. I think better than advertised, especially after the way I think all these teams look this past weekend. Let's work our way from what happened most recently into Sunday. So we'll start with last night, the first Monday Night Football game of the year, the first game. Aaron Rodgers is back for these New York Jets. The Niners are going into this one with the idea in mind that they, the last time they're out on the field, they suffer a heartbreaking loss. It feels like that's the case for these Niners year in and year out. And they want to finally take advantage of what they have at their disposal. And that's easily one of the best rosters in the NFL. The Jets come into this game. They think they're on the same wavelength as the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners have earned the right to be there. It felt like the Jets have done everything in the offseason to feel like they should be on that level, but haven't earned necessarily the ability to be there. Last night was going to be able to prove a lot. It was going to be able to prove for the Niners, we're going to continue with this in stride, regardless of Super Bowl loss, NFC Championship loss, year in and year out. We're coming back in. We're going to be contending right away. For the Jets, they come into this game, first game with Aaron Rodgers. They want to prove what everybody's saying is accurate, that we're AFC East favorites, that we have the potential of overthrowing Mahomes, etc. You go into this game last night, you think it's going to be even keeled. Then you hear that Christian McCaffrey's not playing. And all of a sudden you're thinking, man, is this swinging in the direction of the Jets a little bit here? Couldn't have been further from the case. Jesse, last night, you couldn't have kicked the season off better if you're a San Francisco 49ers fan. 32-19, the victory for the Niners in San Francisco. That's coming without Christian McCaffrey. That's coming with pretty much no production at all from Brandon Ayuk. 32 points on one of the better defenses in the league last year. 8 consecutive scoring drives. I think that was the first time that the Jets have ever allowed that in franchise history. Jesse, just give me the top to bottom here, including talking about Jordan Mason and this Niners' ability last night to frankly dominate the New York Jets on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, that's let's not bury the lead. Jordan Mason was fantastic. He deserves all the credit in the world. Talked about him. I know I've talked about him on this show. I do Behind Enemy Lines on Wednesday with the opposing team's content creator. And my guy to watch was Jordan Mason. And now at that time, I thought that Christian McCaffrey was playing, but I felt like Jordan Mason's just a guy that a lot of people aren't aware of. He runs just like Marshawn Lynch. He's built like Marshawn Lynch. He's got the dreads hanging out the back, wears 24 like Marshawn Lynch. He's even bow-legged like Marshawn Lynch. We watched Marshawn Lynch be fantastic for many, many years in this division. And for 3 years, we've been saying we've got our Marshawn Lynch. Nobody knows he exists outside of our fan base. And last night, it was around middle of the third quarter, Troy Aikman himself says, man, this guy reminds me of Marshawn Lynch. And it was right there. It was like, finally, the validation that we've had as fans for seeing it for all these years. It was a coming out party for one Jordan Mason. He deserves all the credit in the world. The number one question I had going into that game was, can the 49ers defense, particularly against the run, can they hold up? Breece Hall, one of the best running backs in the league, maybe the second best running back in the league behind CMC. He's a do-it-all running back. He runs with power. He runs with speed, great balance, can block, catch, everything. He is an all-around really good back. The offensive line was improved from the Jets. The 49ers at times last year struggled against the run when a team was consistent with it. And then coming into this game with no Dre Greenlaw, which we knew, no Hufanga, which we pretty much knew by midweek was going to be the case. Those are two key cogs for the middle of this defense as far as it goes when it comes to stopping the run. So the question was, can they contain Breece Hall? Well, the answer was a resounding yes. Breece Hall didn't look like himself at all. He was rattled all night, had a fumble, just didn't look very good. And that's a testament to the 49ers defense. Now, I think the question is for Jets fans, and maybe people that watch this game are like, listen, is Aaron Rodgers washed? Aaron Rodgers isn't as quick-footed as he once was. That much was clear. There was some wonky moments when he tried to get mobile where you can see he just doesn't have it anymore. But as far as his arm talent goes, as far as reading defenses goes, as far as making good decisions go, he looks very, very good in that department. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Aaron Rodgers just is washed. We'll find out soon enough, but I'm going to hold out judgment. I don't know that he's washed. I want to give credit to this 49ers defense for doing what they needed to do last night to get the job done and holding Aaron Rodgers in check. I think they did a fantastic job. And then lastly, I have to shout out the special teams. That's always a question here in San Francisco. They're not the best special teams unit. Moody going 6 for 6. Great kickoff coverage. Everything went fantastic on the special teams. It's the forgotten unit. But we as 49er fans know how important it is. Hell, we lost an NFC championship to the Giants because of special teams. We care about special teams. We're happy that it looked good last night. Great win. It's only the beginning for what the expectations are. The 49ers took care of business. The 49ers were the better team. We knew they were the better team. The expectation is that they win week 1 at home as the better team, and they did that. And the only reason that I got a little passionate in the beginning is because not me. It's not me. I don't have any issues with the Jets. They're in the AFC. I don't care about y'all. But your fans came in this chat repeatedly running your mouth as if we were going to get bullied somehow. I don't know where that came from. But outside of that, I hope the Jets have a good season. Kudos to Aaron Rodgers, man. I'm glad you were able to make it through the night and stay healthy. But we knew we were the better team. I mean, this was never a question on whether they would win or lose. It was just by how much and how dominant it would look. And turns out they won by a lot, and they were extremely dominant. Shout out to the 49ers. Great week 1 win. Time to turn to week 2 and go get a win in Minnesota.
I think that anybody who wasn't just chugging Jets Kool-Aid for no reason other than the fact that they just thought Aaron Rodgers would come back and be an MVP again knew the Niners were going to be the better team on the football field last night. But Jesse, to me, what was so stunning was their ability to dominate the Jets defense to the point where the game, I mean, you can evaluate Aaron Rodgers all you want last night. I think the way you put it, I'm in stark agreement with. When he was whipping the ball around, it looked as good as ever. It's just the fact that he is of the age that he is now with the injury, the movement's just not going to be there. But regardless of all that, the Jets had the ball for almost 20 minutes in that game. The Niners had the ball damn near the entire game. And it was because of their ability to dominate the offensive line. Now, I know, or the defensive line of the Jets, I know that everybody says, well, anybody can run behind Kyle Shanahan's offense. I don't know if anybody can do what Jordan Mason did last night. Just real quick, in your opinion, because the Jets defense, especially up front, is about as good as it gets in the league. You would never have guessed that last night. What do you attribute that to? And do you think that that's going to be something all year long that will allow the Niners to continue to be this dominant? Because to me, just as much as I watch the Jets, that was extraordinary. Their ability to just take the Jets defense completely out of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers offensive line is not a great offensive line by any means. However, in the run game, they are very, very good. They always have been. They know how to run block. And the ascension of Dominic Pooney, 3rd-round pick, playing right guard, it's been massive for this team. I mean, the 49ers couldn't consistently run up the right side at all last year. And because Dominic Pooney has been inserted into this lineup, they can. He's a very, very good player. He deserves to be starting there. He earned that job this offseason, and it's very clear that he belongs very early. He's probably the 2nd best offensive lineman already on this team. That says that the other 3 just aren't that great. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But when it comes to run blocking, the scheme, they're good enough. They can get it done. Jordan Mason, though, is the difference maker. I mean, Jordan Mason, you can watch all the film in the world about him. Coming into this game, he averaged 5.6 yards per carry on something like 83 carries in his career. Not a big sample size, but big enough to realize, like, wow, this guy's a difference maker. He makes it impossible to want to tackle him for 4 quarters. He never goes backwards. If you tackle him with your arms, you're not going to bring him down. And then you add in the fact that Deebo Samuel, when he gets a hold of the ball, he's a wrecking ball himself. Sauce Gardner twice ended up on the ground holding his shoulder because he had to tackle Deebo Samuel. These guys are a handful to bring down. They are bullies. They've been bullies for many years. And it's not many teams in the league that are excited to go against the San Francisco 49ers offense. Usually offenses aren't as punishing anymore. This isn't the old school NFL. The 49ers have an old school mentality. They punish football teams. And if they can get up on you and do what they want to do, which is run the ball 40 times a game if they can, it's going to be a long night for anybody. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you saw. They just boat raced them, ran downhill, and there was nothing that the Jets could do about it.
Jake, what was your overall takeaway last night? I'm sure, like all you guys, but you in particular, I bet you watched the Niners a bit more closely than others, just because you know that could wind up being what it comes down to between these two teams and how the playoffs wind up unfolding. What did you see last night right out of the chutes from the San Francisco 49ers against a Jets team that was supposed to compete with them and just never did?
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Mason, and I think Jesse and I had talked about him before the season started. I'm very high on Jordan Mason. I mean, I think he forced like 9 missed tackles, almost 100 yards after contact. I mean, that's him creating essentially, because missed tackles don't have to be broken tackles. It accounts for, making some moves, whether it's a juke or a spin move or what have you, and just creating yards that aren't there essentially. So hats off to him. He was excellent. I know people are going in on Brock Purdy because he's always under fire. It's funny how a win always matters. It's all that matters is a win. But when Brock Purdy does it, if he doesn't have 4 touchdowns, then he doesn't get credit for it. So, and keep in mind, guys, I know I'm the Rams representative here, but I watch football. I know football, and I'm also a fan of football. And you just have to give it to the 49ers. I mean, this was absolutely dominant. I mean, the Jets took the lead to start the game. I mean, they were up 7-0, and Breece Hall had the touchdown, and they thought everything was going to go their way, and they forced the Breece Hall fumble, and I think it actually just killed the Jets' spirit. I mean, if you ask me, I just think they totally broke them. But I think not having Bryce Huff, who's now in Philly, Hassan Reddick's not playing, and just assuming that John Franklin Myers was just a guy, I think was kind of their downfall going into the year, because pretty much the rest of the defense is the same. But you have those guys, Michael Clemens. Like when I covered the Jets, like I definitely circled Michael Clemens' name when they got him. I'm like, this guy is a stud. But I liked him in his role of coming off the bench and being in a rotation. Him now starting and not having a JFM who can help you in the run game, who can actually, rush the passer, and not having the situational rusher who you could bring in Bryce Huff, who had a crazy win rate. I mean, it was among the league leaders last year. Not having those guys. Oh, well, you have Hassan Reddick, right? No, he's holding out. So the Jets didn't get better on their defense. That's the reality. They actually got worse. And I don't know if people realize that, but it took me a little bit to realize that. And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, John Franklin Myers is definitely not just a guy. Like, they definitely miss him. They miss, of course, Huff, But more importantly, they need Reddick back, man. They need Reddick back so badly, because on the flip side, remember when we talked about, I said closers. I know Mike knows what I'm talking about, because we were talking about, closers, right? Guys that can absolutely take over the game, end the game, so to speak. Nick Bosa, we know that. But what did I say about Leonard Floyd? I knew he could be that guy. And him and Leonard Floyd are a really nasty duo. Okay. Leonard Floyd is not going to be mistaken as a guy that's on one of those, big time Old Spice commercials or anything. There's probably no marketability there. He'll probably never be in a commercial like, a Bosa or a Christian McCaffrey, but he's going to be a big piece to this defense. And I hope people realize that. Also, Isaac Yiadom, that play on 4th down when they went for it, hell of a play by him. Another guy I stuck my neck out for. What he did yesterday, what he did, last year for the New Orleans Saints was really impressive. And I just don't think people realized it. So I'm glad they brought it up on the broadcast. Like, this is a guy who was a special teamer, and he's made a name for himself. I was pissed when the 49ers, I thought he was a great ad, especially in a cornerback market that I think is really kind of all over the place. Unless you have a defensive player of the year award or you win the Super Bowl like L'Jarius Sneed, you're really not getting paid as a cornerback. So it's kind of a crapshoot. There's a bunch of guys out there. I thought that was great value going after them. But the thing about the 49ers here is that, they were at home, and I get that. And, that could definitely come into play. And if it was at MetLife Stadium, we probably would have had a million injuries too, to be fair, because the quality there is awful. But yeah, I think I wouldn't say Aaron Rodgers was washed. I thought the 49ers played well against him. I wouldn't be surprised if, Rodgers in the next game looks really good. I mean, he still had his moments where he actually looked like Aaron Rodgers, and he made some big time throws, but there weren't a ton of big time throws to make. And I think that fumble, like I mentioned earlier, really kind of took him out of a rhythm. So, going back to the offensive line, like Jesse was talking about, my guy, Dominic Pooney, first off, Kansas could use him, but then again, they could use an offensive coordinator. Dominic Pooney looked great. I was very much interested in Dominic Pooney. Trent Williams does not look like he missed any time in the offseason. He just can put on the jersey, go out there, and just play at a high level. Same thing with Ayuk. I know people are going to be like, well, he didn't go off. I mean, who went off, though, this week? Did you guys notice around the league? It was like Alec Pierce was like the leading receiver of the week. I mean, come on, like you're not going to go on, it's like, I don't even know, but it's funny to me how people go crazy about week 1, about certain things, but not other things that are important. And I think just, you got to tip your cap. The 49ers, a lot of this false narrative stuff was thrown out there, probably in the event that people were hoping that the false narratives became actual narratives and it was going to happen. But the reality of the situation is this: they're still a really good football team. They're going to be very physical. The Jets might actually be punished for the next game because of it. They're not an easy team to play. They're not fully healthy yet either, although I'm not going to get into health. You have plenty of health. I'll take your health over what the Rams have, but they're not fully healthy yet either. They're not fully acclimated. Trent Williams, he's going to be 100% himself when he's fully revved up. He didn't play at all he didn't have any of those reps, none of those joint practices, none of those. Same thing with Brandon Ayuk. So wait till those guys get acclimated. And shout out to my guy, Juwan Johnson, who is a big reason why even, I won a bet with Juwan Johnson in the Super Bowl and got my putter. So always love Juwan Johnson for that. But Juwan Jennings, excuse me. Juwan Jennings looked really good. I want to bring up one thing, guys. Are we not calling the hip drop tackle? Because I was totally against the hip drop tackle. I was totally against it being banned, right? I think I don't want defense to be harder to play. But if it's a rule and it's player safety, then you can't just be like, I don't really feel like it. No. You have to call that. And that was so blatantly obvious. And like, guys, I kind of like the Jets here. So like, I'm unbiased in a sense. Like, I'm defending the 49ers. Jennings got his ankle absolutely crushed by the hip. And that is literally what they're trying to avoid. I don't know how he even returned. So yeah, I think they got to get rid of the hip drop tackle or whatever, or whatever. But Yeah, that was kind of annoying, guys. I'm not going to lie, because I thought there was going to be a heavy emphasis, but instead we got that stupid call on Ronnie Stanley 6 times over on Thursday Night Football. And then they acted like the entire point of that call, by the way, was because of Jawan Jennings and they are Jawan Taylor, excuse me. And they didn't call it once on Jawan Taylor. So I would rather them scrap that than and call the hip drop tackle than call whatever I don't even remember what it was called. The legal
formation. It was all weekend long. I'm sure Mike remembers because in the Bills game, Cardinals hit Josh Allen with a brutal hip drop tackle. And Allen got up, and I'm personally somebody who doesn't love when people run their mouth to the refs. And I know Allen's gotten a little bit of a kind of a, what do you call it? He's kind of getting known for that a little bit. So he got up off this hit, and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't really see anything there. And then it hit me, like you just said, Jake. That's what it was. It was to the letter of the law. That's why he was saying something, because we're so conditioned to think that that's a normal hit because it was never not. Now it isn't. And when you do go back and look over the weekend, multiple times that exact same thing happened. And I think the way you put it is best, because it's not like they weren't making point of emphases over the weekend in general, because the amount of illegal formation calls was insane. Thursday night, it was almost unbearable to watch in the first half. So I don't know what the plan is there, but I'm in agreement with you. Either start calling it or just get rid of the idea of it in general. Real quick, Mike, before we move on to the next game, your thoughts last night on the Niners and overall how they looked against the Jets.
I just want to quote real quick, Julian from Big Daddy, the goddamn Jets, man. They are who they are. It's terrible, man. Like I feel so bad for them. I really do. Like they were pumping up their chest. Like I remember King Lowski in here, and shout out to you, Jess. You're sticking to your guns there, because man, he was talking all crazy, and I feel bad for them as an organization. I really do, because they thought that was the Mississippi. And here's the thing, Aaron Rodgers could still be their savior if that's what it is, but it wasn't against the 49ers. The 49ers were obvious bullies. They are the dominant team, and it's crazy because like I thought to myself for a split second, oh my god, CMC isn't playing, oh this is going to be an exciting game. It was exciting for like a quarter, and then it almost kind of just seemed like it got away. Man, shout out to the 49ers. They are a well put together team, and obviously the running back in Jordan Mason, I have heard you guys talk about him before. Absolutely nuts. So yeah, that's regardless of that offensive line, it takes a special player to do what he did in the NFL, because these are grown men here. These are grown men, and 150 yards plus. I'm sorry, 147 yards. I apologize. 1 touchdown, average about 5.2 yards a carry. It's amazing. So I will give credit to where credit's due. It pains me to say it. I wanted to have lost Seahawks win, because I'm not worried about the Seahawks, but I didn't get my wish. So goddamn Jets.
The freaking Jets, man. I'm in total agreement with you. Let's flip from Monday Night Football to Sunday Night Football. Let's go to Rams versus Lions. We had an idea going into the weekend that this could be one of the games of the weekend. You could argue it was the game of the weekend, the only one to go to overtime. It was a bitter battle all the way to the end. I thought the Rams were going to pull it off in regulation, wound up going to overtime, and Jake kind of alluded to it earlier. It just felt like whoever won the toss was winning that game based on the fatigue. And that's what wound up happening. Lions take this one in overtime, 26-20. Matt Stafford, nearly 50 pass attempts in this one. It felt like half the Rams team went down with an injury in this game, but you did get a sense that these two teams will be fighting for something more important than a week 1 victory at some point in this season. It's just kind of how it felt watching those two duke it out. So Jesse, you watched that game on Sunday night as a Niners fan who's always going to be vying for the 1-2 seed every year until you're not. You look at those two teams, you got a feeling they're going to be right around there as well, the way that they looked. Your overall takeaway from the Rams against the Lions on Sunday Night Football.
You're muted, Jesse.
Oh, I got him. I unmuted.
There we go. Sorry. Hell of a game. Very, very impressive performance from both those teams. The Detroit Lions are a really good football team. I know Jake doesn't like them, but he'll admit, man, that's a good football team. And to lose to them with all those injuries and keep it that close was very, very impressive. I've said it for a while now. Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFC. I don't know that it's particularly close at this moment. And he's able to just keep them in games that they don't belong in. They enter the game without their starting right tackle. They enter the game without their starting left tackle. They lose their backup left tackle. They lose their starting left guard. They lose Puka Nacua. Tre'Davious White is, in fact, a shell of himself, and they still find a way to hang around, stay in that game against an uber talented Lions team at home who's trying to come out and make a statement. And they just hung around, man. And yes, they ended up losing in overtime, but it was a very, very impressive loss, if there is such a thing as that. Like I said, they lost. Eagles won. I'm more impressed with the Rams than I am the Eagles. I think that they're the better team, and I expect them to hang around going forward. The issue I have is, listen, at some point, health just catches up to you. And the Rams schedule shapes out to be where they play the Cardinals this week. Maybe they get the win, but maybe they don't. And if they don't win that game, they're injured. Now they get their left and right tackle back, or should be back, for the 49er game in week 3, but you're still coming into that game short. That's a potential loss. And now all of a sudden you might start out 0-3 with 2 division losses. I don't care how good the team is when it's healthy. It might be too little too late. And I know that's crazy to say after 3 weeks, but that's an uphill climb to even make it into the playoffs at that point. So Rams fans, you've got a very good team. Whether they make the playoffs or not, or whether they start 0-3, I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. They're going to be a handful for a lot of teams all the way until they're eventually out of this thing. But starting 0-3 and all those injuries, that would be a very, very unfortunate start. And listen, I hate the Rams. Listen, if they lost every game, that would be great. But what I don't want to see is teams not be at their best. I'm an NFL fan, and I want every team at their best. I hate when there's an injury on a random team in the AFC South that I could care less about. You know what I mean? I just want to see the best football week in and week out. It's a shame that many injuries happened week 1. It's a war of attrition, and every year we see talented teams fall by the wayside because they just can't stay healthy. Hopefully that's not the case for the Rams. I want to see them at their best. I want to win the division while the Rams are at their best. And hell, if we need to beat them into the playoffs because they are at their best, so be it. That's what I want to see. I hope they get healthy. I want to see a great division run here. But I think the Rams, if they are healthy, clearly one of the more talented teams in the NFC, one of the better teams. And my bold prediction last week was the Rams defense, without Ernest Jones, without Aaron Donald, will be better. I think that's going to come to fruition this year.
Some great points. And I think the silver lining for the Rams is that even though it is week 1 and it feels like it's an uphill battle, at least it is week 1. You'd rather probably get it out of the way now. The majority of those guys you anticipate you're going to be getting back hopefully sooner than later. I know Puka Nacua a bit longer than you thought that night, but when you got Cooper Kupp playing like Randy Moss the other night, I mean, it was unbelievable what Cooper Kupp was doing the other night. You got Kyron Williams, one of the best backs in the league, Matt Stafford. I think, Jesse, the way you put it, when we're talking about like top 5, top 10 quarterbacks, it almost takes people a second to be like, oh, yeah, and Matt Stafford. I forgot to throw him in there. The way Matt Stafford plays is still as good as it gets in the league. And I think when it comes to the NFC, it might be as good as it gets. Mike, your thoughts from the Sunday Night Football game? You got the Rams this upcoming week, so I'm sure you were paying close attention. How'd you feel about the Rams against the Lions on Sunday Night Football?
Very, very, very good game. Oh man, it was entertaining. Overtime. And I love the matchup. The Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff, like they just brings a level of drama to it that I don't know. It brings me in. And of course, we got Jake, rooting for the Rams. So I obviously love to kind of see what happens in the NFC West as well. But overall, very good game. You got to give them kudos. I mean, they went down. It almost kind of seemed like every other play there was an injury, and they stayed in it. They went through overtime. And I don't know. I think when it just came down to like, the Rams are a good team, and I'm not taking anything from them. I think their defense actually surprised me a lot more than I want to give them credit for. Jared Verse looks absolutely nuts. But that Lions team, I really do feel like they're on another level. Like that duo and running backs they got over there in Gibbs and Montgomery, man, that they are really, really good. But going back to wanting to give them props because their defense is better than I thought, man, you got to give them kudos to basically holding Amon-Ra St. Brown to 3 receptions, 13 yards. Like that's nuts. And then Sam Laporta really didn't get going very much. It had to depend on Jameson Williams. So it was really cool to see a first round pick in Jameson Williams actually kind of really come out in the big lights, because he was a guy I really liked in the draft and in the combine as well. So I like that he's now finally getting his shine. But this game came down to, I guess you can't say injury because, it sucks, but they hung on. They did a good job, but the coin flip, man. Coin flip beat it at the end of the day. The Lions took
Tails
it,
never
but
fails, man.
yeah, I'm not going to be mad at it. I think this is the result I wanted. But this is a very, very entertaining game from the beginning to the end. I loved every bit of it.
I wish they would just implement the playoff overtime rule into the regular season. I don't know why they switch it up. It's a game like that where you just feel like, why not? I mean,
you read my mind, Z-Bot. Because I wanted to bring that up real quick if we have time, because Sean McVay actually, he has this Sean McVay show every Tuesday. And he was talking about that because the Rams benefited from that last year. So I love, this is Sean McVay in a nutshell. He's not going to sit there and be like, this is unfair, and we lost to the Lions, and we didn't get a chance to play, and we didn't get our offense there, whatever. No, first thing he did was, well, actually, this is what happened. We actually benefited off a walk-off touchdown, and I think it was week 4 with Puka Nacua in Indy. So we've seen it on this side, and we've seen it on this side. I think at the end of the day, this is my take, and I don't know if you guys will agree. But my take is, especially with covering baseball, and there's 162 games. Not every single 162, every single game of those 162 feel like they mean, everything. Every single NFL game, we're told every game matters, right? Then why does it not matter when it's overtime? Why? Because you're telling me the Super Bowl, both teams can touch the football, right? And the playoffs, I think they're going to implement that in the wild card if they haven't already. That's like the plan, wild card, divisional round, conference championship. The point I'm making here is there's only 17 games in a season. And you could argue throughout history, I'm sure there are teams that had crazy injuries. And for whatever reason, because there's only 17 games in a season, they don't get into the playoffs, or they just had a really tough schedule or whatever. We don't always see the best 7 or even the best 6 back in the day in each conference make it. And I think people need to understand that. Not every single best team, say the best 14, make the playoffs. It's not necessarily true. But now you're making it more difficult because you're basically saying that the regular season doesn't matter. That's what you're saying. You're saying, let's cut it short. We'll take a tie. And we'll actually, because it used to be 15-minute quarter, and now it's 10 minutes. What is it going to be, 5? When is it going to be 5? Because I understand the whole player safety aspect of it, but you also have to understand the other side of it, is that we can continue to do player safety. You're still playing football. It's still a tough sport. And these games matter. I don't want to see a tie. I don't want to see 8-7-1 or whatever that the Rams and 49ers that year with Kaepernick. Like, I don't want to see a tie. And this isn't even that. This is just saying we watched a great game. Everyone would agree that was one of the best games of the week, if not the best. And it ends on one team with one possession. Now, not saying that the Rams defense should get a pass for not being able to stop them. They were gassed. I think it would have happened with the Lions as well, but not saying they deserve a pass. I'm just saying in the business of entertainment, which is where the NFL is, why would you not want Matthew Stafford getting a shot at Ford Field, having a chance to drive down the field and tie the game in overtime? They would probably go for 2 because they probably wouldn't want the tie. So they'd probably go for 2 to try to win it if they scored a touchdown. How could you not want that? And the way the ruling is this is essentially what you get. You had this Z-Bot, as well as anybody. Josh Allen was sitting there on the sideline. We watched one of the most incredible playoff games ever, and he had to watch Patrick Mahomes march down the field and win the game. Josh Allen was a big reason why that game was exciting. He was part of the entertainment value, and we didn't get to see him get a chance to go back on the field. I think it hurts the product. I'm not saying it kills the product, but I think, it is an entertainment business. There should be, that should be part of it. But again, also the aspect there's only 17 games, guys. I think that has to play into it. I think every game matters. Prove it.
Agreed. I think it goes against everything that the NFL tries to implement, and that is increasing the entertainment value at all costs. That is making sure everything kind of correlates back to the bottom line. And what they do in the playoffs is exactly what they should be doing in the regular season. I never understood these nuanced rule changes that only have to do with certain times, because like you said, I think it devalues other aspects of the game. These games are all essentially playoff games to some degree compared to every other sport. It does make no sense why you would make a drastic change like you would in the playoffs, because I think I do agree with you. It does sort of in a way tell you, yeah, we don't value those other games as much, which just doesn't seem very NFL-like at all, because if it was, they would have just gotten rid of the Pro Bowl by now. They're tone deaf to that. So it makes no sense to me. Jake, really quick, because I know we got to be done within the hour, and I want to make sure we have enough time to cover the Cardinals game. You did a great job wrapping up the game earlier, and I liked a lot of your points. But the one thing I'd love to hear from you right now, because I think the biggest storyline is all these injuries with the Rams. You had these Rams, I think, winning 13 games, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to me about how you think after that game, based on what you saw with all the injuries. Talk to me about why you're still confident in these Rams' ability to have as good of a season as you hope they were going to, despite all these injuries that they suffered on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean, first off, defense, I think is 8 weeks ahead of where I thought they'd be. Like way better than I expected. I mean, rookies, young players that have very limited starting experience being thrusted into that role against a really good, offense. And they did a fantastic job, I thought. So I think Chris Shula's defense, as John Johnson put it, is simple and it's effective. And I think, they're not going to be thinking as much, it's not as complex. And I think that's a beautiful thing. On the offensive side of the ball, you have Matthew Stafford. And if I'm going to sit here, and guys, I told you 13-4 health permitting, because it should always be health permitting, right? I mean, we're making unless you have a quarterback that is known to get hurt all the time, we're making a prediction based on that. So Z-Bot, to answer your question, I see a team that has a decently fair schedule, and I see a team that they lost nobody for the year out of everybody they lost the other night. And a lot of them are going to be back after, right after the bye. And normally I would complain about a week 6 bye. The week 6 bye is going to be the savior for the Rams. I'm telling you that right now. I think that they are going to beat the Cardinals, but I think the Cardinals will play them tough. I think the 49ers, they can beat them. I'm iffy on that, but they don't have to win that game because they have Caleb Williams and the Bears, who I think they're a horrible matchup for Caleb. I think Caleb does not want to see that defense, and they don't want to see Stafford. And then you have the Packers, who is Jordan Love playing or not? I don't know. Don't care. It's at SoFi Stadium. I'll take the Rams. Go into the bye. If the Rams are 3-2 coming out of the bye, they're in the driver's seat. Nakua's back. All their offensive line is back. Their cornerback, their number one cornerback, Darius Williams, is back. There's a lot of things that are going right for the Rams that I don't want to kind of gloss over just because of the injuries. But I will say they did sign 3 offensive linemen today. I'm sure tomorrow's practice is going to be just absolutely ridiculous because it's a bunch of guys that don't even know the offense. But there's actually one guy, fun fact real quick, Ty Nsekhe. He was on the team in 2022. Guess what? Ty Nsekhe in 2012, guys, this is the way the world works. He was on the St. Louis Rams practice squad.
It all comes full circle. That's beautiful.
All does.
I love it. Speaking of your Rams, Jake, and speaking of the Arizona Cardinals, who we're going to talk about in a second here, they do face off this week. We'll head over to BetUS. I was stunned to see this. I cannot lie to you. The Arizona Cardinals, as it stands right now on BetUS, are a 1-point favorite against the Los Angeles Rams at 4 o'clock Eastern on Sunday afternoon. If you want to get in on the Rams, if you want to get in on the Cardinals, it's essentially a coin flip. You can go over to BetUS right now, promo code YouTube150. That's going to give you a 150% sign-up bonus, up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. That was a bit of a stunner to me. I don't know if that's baking in the injuries or what, but maybe it's baking in the fact the Arizona Cardinals looked a lot better than I think people thought they would this past Sunday. So, Jesse, we'll start with you. Narrow win for the Buffalo Bills against the Arizona Cardinals. It looked like early on the Arizona Cardinals, there was going to be nothing narrow about that game. It looked like they were going to blow the Bills out of their own building the way things kicked off. Your overall perspective of an Arizona Cardinals team that comes into this year and now adds even more competition to an NFC West team that we talked about earlier in the group chat. People are already questioning, is this maybe the best division in the NFL right now?
Well, it might be the best division in the NFL for sure. The Cleveland Browns did themselves in that division no favors, neither did the Bengals. We'll see how it plays out. But that being said, the Arizona Cardinals pretty much are who I thought they were. And they let them off the hook. No, the Arizona Cardinals, I said that they're going to be in a lot of close games this year. I had them at 6 wins, and I know that as a Cardinals fan, that may come across as an insult and what have you. But my whole point was, usually teams that are about to be really good have a season where they're in a lot of close games and they lose those games. And that's what I look at when I see the Arizona Cardinals. I felt like they were a year away. They're a draft away from really beefing up this defense, getting what they ultimately need, which is a consistent pass rush and a consistent good defense. And once they have that, I think they'll be in a place where they can truly compete. But because of that, and because they are a much improved team, because they are a well-coached team, I believe that they would have a lot of close losses this year, hard-fought games, and that shows growth. That shows that they're ready to compete the following year. And week 1 was exactly that. Ultimately, it came down to who the better quarterback is, and that's what you saw. Josh Allen is second to only Patrick Mahomes in the NFL, and there is no shame in that. But Josh Allen is that freaking good. I mean, you look at the weapons that the Buffalo Bills have, not one of those guys start on the San Francisco 49ers. That's how under-talented they are from a weapons perspective and how uber talented the San Francisco 49ers are. Josh Allen is a one-man wrecking crew. And just like Mike said, when you have an opportunity to pin them down and go take a bigger lead and expand on that, they needed to take advantage there. And unfortunately for the Cardinals, they were unable to do so. Josh Allen does Josh Allen things, and they come out with the victory. No shame in that. I think the Cardinals are going to compete game in and game out. I don't know that they'll win this week. We'll see. I got to think this one through because I think this is going to be a tough game as well. But the Arizona Cardinals are a good team. One thing I do want to say is my bold prediction last week was Marvin Harrison Jr. wouldn't get 1,000 yards. Even I didn't see one catch for 5 yards or whatever he ended up getting coming. That threw me for a loop. Listen, wow. I didn't think he would get 100 yards, but I didn't think he would get a catch for 5. What is going on there? Mike, I wait to answer until it's your turn, but I'm very curious to see what your thoughts are, why that was a factor. I know that he was able to get open and Kyler just didn't see him a couple times. Maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe they just don't have the continuity from not working out together in the offseason. I don't know. You'll be better equipped to answer that question, but that one really threw me for a loop. But listen, the Cardinals are going to compete this year, man. I think they're a much improved team. They're just going to lose a lot more games than Cardinals fans hoped that they would.
Jake, your Rams are a dog to these Cardinals this coming week. What did you take away from what you saw from the Cardinals against the Bills on Sunday?
I liked what I saw. I mean, I thought, the first half, Kyler Murray, I think he has a lot that he can build off of in the film room. Getting in, watching what he did in the first half, a lot to take away. The second half, and, I actually had Mike on my channel, and I went on his channel talking about this game upcoming, and he had brought to my attention that Jonah Williams went down. When Jonah Williams went down, Gregory Rousseau turned into the Hulk. I don't even know what, whatever you want to call him. He had 3 sacks. I mean, Jonah Williams, if he doesn't, first off, he doesn't play against the Rams, they're not winning. But I think that was a big reason why the Cardinals lost this game. I actually was really impressed with the way they played on the road. And, I'm going to bring up something from our group chat. Jesse was like, basically, I'm paraphrasing you here, so sorry, I'm not directly quoting you. But basically, to the effect, Jesse was saying how Cardinals fans should have no issue with the way they lost this game. 34-28 to the Bills on the road against Josh Allen with no pass rush, really no pass rush. I'm sorry, Mike. But really no pass rush, right? And when you're not able to get pressure on Josh Allen, he's going to slice and dice you. Josh Allen, I thought they actually did a really nice job of kind of holding him in check. And as much as you can with Josh Allen when you have no, pressure to speak of. He only ran for 39 yards on 9 carries. He had 2 touchdowns, right? And he threw for 2 touchdowns. So he is Josh Allen. He had 4 touchdowns. He was great, but he didn't do what I would have expected him to do with no pressure. And he forced a lot of missed tackles, and I think that's ultimately what helped. I thought James Cook just kind of wearing down the defense a little bit. He's got some strength to him. And I think really what it came down to is not being able to get Trey McBride going. So shout out to the Bills linebackers for being able to cover him in safeties. Because, I know you guys are without Zeba, I'm correct, right? You guys are without Milano right now.
Oh yeah.
That's a huge, that is an astronomical loss. So, I mean, to hold James Conner to 50 yards on 16 carries, not 60, is a really good outing. I just thought that this was one of those, the 4 o'clock games were incredibly boring. I thought, I'm just going to call it that because I'm on the East Coast. The late games were boring. This game, honestly, no offense, Jesse, because the 49ers belonged on primetime. The Jets did not. This game should have been on primetime. This should have been the Monday Night Football game. It's just, I was so bummed because I get what you were saying about the Eagles and the Packers, but all those games were close. The Rams, Lions, Eagles, Packers, and the Ravens and Chiefs. And then that 49er game was just like you said, boat raced them. So I would have liked to see this on primetime. Mike probably would have gone crazy if they announced, the Cardinals out of nowhere just going to open up Monday Night Football, But yeah.
Well, I'll say if they did, I think personally, maybe outside of those primetime games that we already discussed, not including the Niners game, because I mean, don't get me wrong, Jesse knows I loved watching that game, but it wasn't. I think the Cardinals-Bills game might have been one of the best games of the weekend. It had a little bit of everything. It had great quarterback play. It had turnovers. It had a comeback. It had high scoring. It had good defense at times. It had everything. So with that said, Mike, obviously, I know a loss is a loss. It sucks. But I just feel like from your perspective, got to be a lot of good to take away from that, especially when you score 28 in the future of your offense, as Jesse alluded to, because I'm really curious about this too. This, to me, would have been the thing I was most upset about if I were you, and I'm interested to see how you feel. You score 28, right? You have a great day that you thought you might have gotten out of there with a win. The future of your offense has 1 catch for 4 yards on 2 targets. Talk to me just a little bit about everything, including the lack of anything to do with Marvin Harrison Jr. being involved with that offense.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I am mad at that, honestly. Yeah, I actually chimed in the presser for Drew Petzing, which is our offensive coordinator, and it's unacceptable. It really is. I think we can come out here and try to talk as politically correct as you want, how the game flow and stuff like that, but that's absolutely unacceptable. When we're talking about Marvin Harrison Jr., we're talking about one of the best wide receivers we have on our team. So, I mean, the best weapon we have on our team, right? In terms of wide receivers, I know Trey McBride's a beast as well, but how are you not scheming a game for him? And maybe not just throw a whole game. Let's not throw a whole game for a rookie. That's fine. But if you don't have specific play designs for him, you're doing something wrong. Absolutely. Now, it's crazy because this game started off with James Conner 6 straight times, and that was run, catch the ball. And it was just James Conner. I was like, okay, is anybody else on this in this game but James Conner? But once that kind of died down, I'm not sure if Kyler Murray threw a ball and it just completely whiffed in the wind and he just wasn't confident in the deep throw. He's not confident in throwing in wind. So maybe they took a step back and said, okay, we're going to run the ball. That's what we're going to do. Short play, run. I don't know, because there was a lot of questionable things that happened in this game for the Cardinals side with that 3rd and 10 when the game was on the line and we're like, oh, we want to get 3 or 4 yards. And then the last play, we throw it to Greg Dortch as opposed to going for Michael Wilson, 6'2" wide receiver, or even Marvin Harrison Jr. Or heck, let me throw another one, Trey McBride. We threw it to Greg Dortch, 5'7". So I don't know. I wish I had the answers. I truly do. The only thing I can say, because the media actually hounded Kyler, because I was so curious too. I'm glad that they actually asked some good questions. He just came out and said that that's who we felt the best matchup was. When I look at the film, what I truly see was I think he's actually more confident with Greg Dortch than he is with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson, which is crazy to me because they did have a whole video out on Kyler Murray's got a YouTube channel. If you don't know, he had this whole video posted, 100-hour workout, and he took his entire offensive side of the ball weapons, not the line, but just the weapons, to California on his expense. And it's this whole video of them all working out. Everything looks good, hunky-dory. And the Cardinals decided to not play them in preseason, not even a few snaps. And now the excuse is, oh, they don't have the camaraderie together. Okay, well, that should have been done in preseason. That's why everybody was harping on it. But I think it just comes down to that. They probably just weren't confident in, or the chemistry wasn't 100% down. But we've heard that before and still see a better stat line than we've seen in this game. Like, that's unacceptable. It really is. Like, the Cardinals have gotten so much backlash from what we saw that I only hope that it's up and up from here. Like, I truly do. Like, the Cardinals could have won this game. Like, you're telling me that we were 28 to what you guys scored, and Marvin Harrison Jr. had 1 catch, 4 yards, and Michael Wilson had 1 catch, 5 yards. Like, something's wrong here. Something's really, really wrong. So I'm hoping Kyler Murray, learns from this. We're going to be playing in a dome. So I hope that just only works out to our advantage in game 2. But I don't know. It's a mystery to me too. I don't understand it. The Cardinals probably should have won, but I think we can learn a lot more from a loss than we can from a win, because if we won, a lot of this would have been swept under the rug. And I'm glad it's actually known that, hey, you need to get this going. Regardless of what you do, he needs to get the damn ball in his hand. So I think overall it's a good game. I know I sound mad. I'm not mad. I think there's a lot of good takeaways, but I was mad with the whole Marvin Harrison Jr. thing.
No doubt. I agree with you across the board. I think the future is beyond bright in Arizona. I mean, like you just said, I know, 7 of the points comes from a kick return, but 28 points with Kyler Murray, sub 200 yards, Marvin Harrison Jr., 1 catch. I mean, not a bad way to kick the season off for a Cardinals team that's really trying to get their, legs underneath of them and have a much better start to the year than they did last year. I think that's inarguable that they already have done that. We're going to get wrapping up here in just a minute. Real quick, want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Shinesty, Dan Mitchell and his undies. It's what they're
So now you'll probably notice that half of our representatives at Roundtable Sports always have their undies in a bunch when it comes to their favorite NFL team. And listen, I'm sure that they're getting sick of that feeling where they're feeling a wedgie rather than a warm hug. Maybe they want to say goodbye to uncomfortable chafing and hello to the softest underwear they will ever wear. Well, folks, let me introduce you to Shinesty.com, the underwear company that is here to revolutionize the underwear game. Let's be honest, life is too short for boring undies. These are so soft, y'all. You won't even realize you're wearing them. With the moisture-wicking technology and a perfect fit that never rides up, you'll quite literally feel like your balls are floating on a cloud all day long. And look at some of these absolute designs. And get this, folks, if you use our code at checkout, you can get an additional 15% off your order, RTS15. Remember, supporting our sponsors is a way to support us over at Roundtable Sports. So stop neglecting your balls and give them the gift of Shinesty underwear. Link is in description.
Couple super chats before we round out, by the way. 808 Niner, he's coming in saying, bang, bang, Jazz, off to a hot start. I'm sure 808 Niner pumped up about the big win last night. Rams, let's go. He's saying Rams resiliency. I like that. That's going to be the model the rest of the year, you would imagine. Jake is cooking. Jake's always cooking. And we got SoCal Ram 88. Jesse isn't lying because Jesse earlier said he hates the Rams. And SoCal saying, I hate the Niners. But, that's divisional football, baby. That's the way it should be. JK Gamer coming in. Mike Nye, the Cardinal guy. Mike. Go Cards. Well, it's Cards and it's Rams this week. And I'm sure you're wondering, well, you guys going to preview it? Yeah, of course we're going to preview it, but not right here. I'm trying to get rid of these super chats as I'm talking, and that's not going very well. There we go. Yeah, we're going to be previewing it, but not in this episode. We have another episode coming your way later this week. So on your way out, here's what I want you to do. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. That way you get notified when the preview video comes out later in the week. We'll be talking all about week 2. So we're looking forward to that. Also on the way out, make sure to take advantage of that 150% sign up bonus through BetUS. Promo code YouTube150. You get that 150% bonus up to $2,000 on your first 3 deposits. All right, fellas, a hell of a week 1, and I'm sure week 2 is going to be just as good. Can't wait to dive into it. For Mike, for Jesse, for Jake, and for Norb, who couldn't be with us tonight, I'm your host, Z-Bot. We'll see you on the next episode of the NFC West Roundtable.
We got one more super chat real quick.
Oh, another one. Great poll, Jesse. What do we got? Mo Maggot. He's giving us a little bit of Seattle analysis, too, before we
hey, real quick. I know that we didn't have Seattle representation tonight. Yes. There's a lot of Seattle Seahawks fans in here. Just real quick, if you guys don't mind, maybe give 15, 20 seconds on the Seahawks. We got to show them some love too. Oh God, that sounds weird. I hate the Seahawks, but they did win. They beat the Broncos. And I think what we saw was exactly what we expected, which is 2 much improved coaches on the offensive side and defensive side of the ball. Now, Geno Smith didn't do him favors with some of those throws early on, and they were getting pinned back on deep on their side of the field. They got a couple safeties. That was the weirdest game offensively, but defensively, man, it lived up to expectation. That team is a different team. A lot of the same players, but very, very well coached by Mike McDonald. So no surprise there. I think Grubb put them in great positions offensively. They just couldn't execute. Maybe that's a Geno Smith thing. I think Geno's probably 15th to 18th best quarterback in the league. So sometimes it's not going to be great. Sometimes it'll be good. But ultimately, I think that team is still supremely talented, and great start for them. And I think they've got a couple nice wins coming up on their schedule before they eventually have to lose to the 49ers. You know what I mean?
I think that's a great way to put it, especially on the defensive side of things for Seattle, because that's really what they were under Pete Carroll in their glory days. If they can get back to that, it might not matter if Geno Smith's a mid-caliber quarterback. If they can play defense like, the flashes we saw this past week, and I know you're playing a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix, but Seattle's not going to be an easy out with that defense, no doubt about it. And once again, yeah, we would have loved to have dove into the whole thing. An hour, fellas, it's amazing. When we're talking real football, an hour feels like we were talking before the show started, and I think it was you, Jake. You're like, there's no way we're going an hour without Norbert talking about Seattle. I looked up, and I'm like, holy shit. We're already 5 past the hour, so don't worry.
That's on me. I eat so many segments. Like, you know how like guys are space eaters? Yeah, I eat segments. So.
Yeah, you had the game of the week to talk about. I don't think anybody can blame you. Plus, it was week 1. We're going to get our feet underneath of us, folks. Don't worry. Maybe we will next episode. You won't know until you tune in. We'll see you during that next episode, and we can't wait for it. Thanks again for tuning in this evening, and have a great rest of your week, everybody. Peace.